It's 2:17 in the morning. The U.S. Ronald Reagan is cutting through the South China Sea at 30 knots, winds at 40 miles per hour, waves at 12 feet, and somewhere behind the ship, in complete darkness, a 22-year-old sailor named Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Webb is fighting to stay alive. He fell 60 feet. That's the height of a 6-story building. Straight into black water, moving faster than most people drive on a highway. The ship doesn't know he's gone yet, and every second that passes makes the difference between a rescue and a funeral. This is what actually happens when a U.S. sailor goes overboard, and what you're about to hear, most people never get to know. Every year, men and women serving aboard U.S. Navy vessels face one of the most terrifying scenarios in maritime history. Not enemy fire, not equipment failure, just a single moment. A wet deck, a rogue wave, a split second of lost footing, and a sailor disappears into the ocean. The U.S. Navy calls it man overboard, but that simple phrase hides a reality that is far more desperate, and far more dangerous, and far more incredible than anything Hollywood has ever shown you. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the full story. The training, the technology, the split-second decisions, and the brutal math of survival that every sailor on every ship knows, but rarely talks about. Stay with us, because what you're about to learn will change how you look at every man and woman who serves on our fleet. Before we go any further, if you're proud of the sailors who put their lives on the line every single day to defend our freedom, type PROUD in the comments right now. Let them know America is watching. Let them know their sacrifice is not forgotten. A fall? 60 feet. That's the distance from the flight deck of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier to the surface of the water below. 60 feet. Doesn't sound like much, but at that height, hitting the ocean surface is not like diving into a pool. At 60 feet, water doesn't move out of the way fast enough. The impact is closer to hitting concrete, traveling at roughly 42 miles per hour on contact. In that first second, the human body absorbs a force powerful enough to break ribs, rupture organs, and knock a person unconscious before they even have a chance to react. And that's before the ocean itself gets involved. The propellers of a Nimitz-class carrier span 21 feet across and spin at a force capable of pulling anything within 30 feet directly into them. A sailor who falls near the stern, the rear of the ship, has seconds, not minutes, to move away from that suction before the water itself drags them in. Think about that. For a moment, you've just fallen 60 feet, your body is in shock. The ship is moving away from you. At 34 miles per hour, the ocean is pitch black, and somewhere behind you, the propellers of a 100,000-ton warship are generating a current powerful enough to pull you underwater before you can even call for help. This is the first 10 seconds of a man overboard situation, and it gets harder from here. The clock starts ticking. Here's what most people don't realize about the ocean at night. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how well you swim, and water temperature is below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which covers most of the areas where U.S. carriers operate. The average person has between 30 minutes and 3 hours before hypothermia takes over and the body simply stops functioning. In water below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that window drops to under 30 minutes. And the South China Sea, the Persian Gulf, the North Atlantic, these are not warm waters. But hypothermia is only part of the problem. The average U.S. aircraft carrier travels at 34 miles per hour, and the time it takes a crew member to spot a missing sailor, report it to the bridge, and execute the emergency stop procedure. The ship has already traveled more than half a mile from the point where the sailor entered the water. In daylight, a person floating in the ocean is visible from about 500 feet away. At night, without a flare or a strobe light, at that distance drops to almost zero. This is why the U.S. Navy operates what's called the PRISM system, Personnel Recovery Information System and Management. Every sailor on a U.S. vessel carries a personal locator beacon when activated. It sends a GPS signal directly to the ship's bridge. But here's what nobody tells you. The beacon only works if the sailor is conscious enough to activate it, and after a 60-foot fall into moving water, that is far from guaranteed. The response. The moment a man overboard alarm is triggered on a U.S. carrier, the entire 5,000-person crew ships into a single coordinated machine. It happens in under 90 seconds. The ship's captain is notified immediately. The bridge executes a Williamson Turn, a precise maneuver developed in World War II that brings a ship back to the exact point where a person entered the water at full speed. Executing this turn for a Nimitz-class carrier takes approximately 4 minutes, and covers nearly 2 miles of ocean at the same time. The ship's search and rescue helicopter, an MH-60S Seahawk, is spinning up on the flight deck. 2 rescue swimmers, 2 in a bolus ring, and 2 trains to enter the water in conditions that would terrify most people, are suiting up in gear that costs over $50,000 per set. The ship's radar locks onto the last known position. Night vision equipment is deployed across the deck, and every available sailor on the ship, hundreds of them, lines the rail, scanning the water below. Not just because it's their duty, because that sailor in the water, is their brother, their sister, their shipmate, and the U.S. Navy does not leave anyone behind. Real quick, if you're finding value in the story, please take just 1 second to hit that like button. And subscribe to American Steel. Over 98% of people watching right now have not subscribed. It costs you nothing. But it's how we keep bringing you stories about the men and women who protect this nation. Hit subscribe. We'll be right back. The survival window. Let's talk about the math, because the U.S. Navy has studied man overboard scenarios extensively, and the numbers are both sobering and remarkable. Without a personal locator beacon, the survival rate for a nighttime man overboard situation drops to under 40%. With a beacon, proper cold water survival gear, and a crew that responds within 5 minutes, that number jumps to over 85%. 5 minutes. That is the margin between life and death on the open ocean at night. This is why every sailor on a U.S. Navy vessel undergoes something called SERE training. Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Part of that training involves being thrown, not dropped, thrown, into a pool while fully clothed and blindfolded. To simulate the disorientation of an unexpected water entry, they practice it over and over again. How to orient themselves in total darkness. How to remove their boots before the waterlogged leather pulls them under. How to signal. How to conserve heat. How to stay calm when every instinct in their body is telling them to panic, because panic kills faster than the cold. This is not training for something that might happen. This is training for something that does happen 20 to 30 times per year across the U.S. fleet. But here's what never makes the headlines. The recovery rate for U.S. Navy man overboard situations, when the full emergency response protocol is executed correctly, is among the highest of any Navy in the world. Not because the ocean is forgiving, because our sailors are not the ones who didn't make it back. We have to say this part, because the full story demands it. Not every man overboard situation ends with a rescue. Some sailors are never found. Some are recovered too late, and the ocean keeps no record of what it takes. In 2019, Navy seaman Indra Clay disappeared from the U.S. Abraham Lincoln in the Persian Gulf. She was 19 years old. The Navy launched one of the largest maritime search operations in recent history, covering over 2,200 square miles of ocean over 4 days. She was never found. Her family, her shipmates, and her country carry that with them. And yet, here is what makes the U.S. Navy unlike any other force on Earth. In the weeks after Seaman Clay's disappearance, recruitment at her home base did not drop. It went up, because the people who choose to serve on these ships already know the risks. They know the ocean is unforgiving. They know that some deployments end in ways no one wants to speak about, and they go. Anyway, not because they have to, because they believe, with everything they have, that this nation is worth protecting. That is what most people never understand about the men and women who sail on our carriers. It is never just a job. Why they do it, the next time you see a photograph of a U.S. aircraft carrier. 1,092 feet of steel cutting through the open ocean. Try to hold this image in your mind. Alongside it, somewhere on that ship right now, there is a 20-year-old from a small town in Ohio who hasn't seen his family in 8 months. There is a mother from San Diego who video calls her kids every Sunday from a ship that sits 6,000 miles from home. There is a rescue swimmer who trained for 2 years specifically to jump into 40 degrees Fahrenheit water in the middle of the night to save someone she may never have met. They don't do it for recognition. They do it because someone has to, and they decided, quietly, without fanfare, that the U.S. Navy loses sailors to the sea. It always has, and the men and women who wear that uniform know it. They know the statistics. They've done the math. And they show up. Anyway, every port, single, day. That is what American resolve looks like. Not in a speech. Not on a stage. On a flight deck. At 2:17 in the morning. In the dark. In the storm. Doing what needs to be done. Because no one else will. These are our sailors. And they deserve far more than our thanks. They deserve our recognition. Behind every photograph of a U.S. aircraft carrier is a story the camera never captures. It's the story of 5,000 people who chose something harder than comfort, something more demanding than safety, something greater than themselves. Now you know what happens. When one of them falls, you know the training, the technology, the 90-second response, the brutal math of cold water, and darkness, and time, and you know, without question, that the U.S. Navy fights for its sailors with the same ferocity that its sailors fight for this nation. If this video gave you a new appreciation for the men and women on our fleet, hit that like button. Subscribe to American Steel, so you never miss a story like this one. Our next video goes inside something even most Navy veterans have never seen. The classified medical bay aboard a U.S. aircraft carrier, where surgeons perform open-heart surgery in the middle of the ocean, with no hospital for 1,000 miles. In any direction, you won't want to miss it.